What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to 8 Cubes. This is, of course, Lambie Series' channel, and we are 8 Cubes. This is our podcast where we talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap, starting with Angela getting nerfed to a 2/3 that gets +1 for every card played on her lane. Where are you at with Angela right now, and what are your expectations going into the future after the OTA?
I feel like they keep going back and forth with Angela, right? Like they've done so many changes to her. They recently obviously gave her back the +2, and then they did find out it was too strong. It was very winning in almost all those mid-range decks that we are playing right now. Then they dropped her back now to +1 at 2/3. I personally don't think that she's actually a bad card right now. She's obviously worse, but the synergy that she has with Kitty Pryde still allows her to be very much playable, right? Because at the end of the day, your whole Elsa, Kitty, Angela strategy, not always Elsa, but sometimes, like, it involves replaying cards on the same location multiple times, and then of course Angela just gets buffed multiple times. So I don't expect her to be your 210 any longer. I expect maybe 2/6, 2/7, 2/8, something like that, if you still draw her on curve. But yeah, she's definitely worse, but I don't think you can actually count her out from like decks that she used to be good in, like the Ravona deck, for example.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people expected this change to kill her, going from based on what happened last time when she went to 2/2 and she was like roundly unplayable. But she's being dragged up right now, I think, by the fact that every Thena deck wants to be a Kitty Pryde deck. And if you want to
Yes.
be a Kitty Pryde deck already because you are playing Thena, and that is the easiest way to make sure you're playing 2 cards, there's basically no reason not to be an Angela deck still, because she is still going to be a 2/6, a 2/7, a 2/8 that synergizes with what you're doing, that gives you a place to get extra value out of the kitty, is still going to be doing what you want to be doing. I had great success just playing the same Ravona deck, making absolutely no changes. Angela was a little bit worse, Thena was a little bit better, relatively speaking, but they're still good. The whole thing still works. And so what happened previously was after Angela got nerfed, there was this brief interregnum where Werewolf by Night was like the best thing you could do. There was no other early scaler. But right now, the best other early scaler is Thena, and she wants to go with Angela rather than replace her. And that is, I think, what's going to keep Angela's head above water, even though she's a markedly worse card now.
Yeah, I do want to say though that, like, one of the biggest things that affects her playability, even though she's still gonna be played, but like it makes her like a bit worse, which is she doesn't actually become one cost with Ravona
Yeah.
anymore, which matters sometimes. Okay, on turn 2 itself it doesn't really matter, but like outside of turn 2 it kind of does matter a little bit. So something to take note there.
There is like an interesting thing that's going on though, where it's like, okay, 2/3 means that you're not always getting Red Guardianed anymore. Like, there
Mm.
is, like, this non-zero thing that happens where you have, like, Thena and Angela and Kitty Pryde, where you dump the Angela out first, and then you go Thena Kitty on 3, and they're not very likely to actually hit the Thena with the Red Guardian, and they might not even be able to hit the Angela with the Red Guardian, and so, like, you end
It's
up in
like,
this spot where it's, like, a little bit better against counterplay.
yeah, it's like a contextual buff, right? Because normally what you do with Angela, if you play her on turn 2, means you kind of lose priority.
Yep.
Because if you play like 0 power, and then they Red Guardian you on 3 because they have priority. Now you play a 2/3, so you are less likely to lose priority. So it's like not a buff to the card, but in a certain situations, it's actually like better, right?
Yeah, I would say it's, like, a pretty heavy nerf, but there's, like it's not a heavy enough nerf where she's not still good in decks that wanna be playing Kitty Pryde. Hercules, 3/4, same ability. I have seen more move decks over the past 5 hours than I have seen basically ever before. As to whether or not they're good, I think the jury is still out on that. One of the things that really sticks out to me is that, like, it does work very well with the beast type move decks, where your goal is to, like, you do something stupid, you make a giant human torch, you beast it back to your hand, you play the giant human torch in a taskmaster, you've thrown priority, you cannot lose the game, your numbers are unassailable. And I actually think that's like a pretty strong thing to be doing. It's a little bit finicky, and your opponents, like, especially once the list becomes like very public, it's like very clear you're getting taskmastered or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're probably going to just have people leave, right? But it is a real strategy, and I do think Hercules going to 3 is a powerful part of that strategy, albeit a, like, roll your 50/50s right reliant one, because you really want your things to end up in the lane with the activators, and Hercules does make that kind of a coin flip.
Okay, so I have now become an expert on this deck. Not an expert because I'm great at this deck. I'm an expert because I actually spent time figuring this deck
Sure.
out for whatever weird reason I did.
Okay.
But like, okay, so as of time of recording this and posting this, I've posted a deck on Twitter which I've titled I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's winning. So basically, this deck that KM has just talked about, the Beast Move Bounce thing. The deck list is on my Twitter. But like, what this does and what Hercules has done for this deck is, in the past you couldn't play Hercules before like your movement stuff because it's cost 4, right? Now you can go like Hercules on turn 3, Vulture, Ghost Spider on turn 4, and that interaction alone is like plus 12 to go to Vulture or whatever dagger or human torch. It's just crazy amount of stats. So it's very okay. I don't think Hercules is like a real card in every situation, but it's a real card in this deck. Like if you play this deck, you will want Hercules now because it's just a 3/4 that adds like 20 over stats to like your combo. It's kind of crazy. Like and it's actually relatively unbeatable if you draw perfectly. Of course, you have to draw perfectly. It's what I would like to call a super glass cannon, in
Yeah.
which if you don't draw well, you always die. But if you draw well and you know how to play the deck, you always win because it's just unbeatable amount of points plus you throw priority. So I will never expect this kind of deck to be like meta because firstly it's like too much effort to learn. Secondly, it's just naturally a bit more inconsistent. But it's like Phoenix Force levels of if it works, your opponent just dies. So interesting to see if more people pick it up. Don't expect it to be meta, but expect it to be a scary force because, well, Hercules is way better than it used to be. Let's be real here.
I think it could be meta personally. Like, I
Okay.
think that
I think it'll be a cult.
any kind of deck that can have like, final turn 50 points wherever
Yeah,
you want it,
mo-
it's
actually, but
gonna
yeah.
be around, right? Like, and Hercules is like the Shuri of this deck. It doubles
Yes.
your things, right? And so you have like this like dagger Hercules thing where it's just like the dagger is unaccountably large. You bounce the dagger back alongside like a ghost spider or whatever. You have like or alongside like an Iron Fist. You go like Iron Fist dagger Taskmaster final turn of the game. It's the grossest thing on earth. You literally cannot lose. And whenever you have a deck that's like you literally cannot lose, I think, well, what if that just becomes the new Hela, the new like combo deck that just sort of sits at the top of the meta and says, haha, idiot, you can't interact with me. And I think that's possible for this deck. I think that's a direction it could go.
Funny you mentioned dagger because I didn't really mention dagger just now because like when we talk about like scaling tall, we think of like that human torch doubling, that vulture +6. But I swear, if you are playing like dagger in this deck versus like Zoo, right? Average
Yeah.
my dagger is like 40 power. I'm
Yeah.
not even kidding. It's like 40 power if you do the combo.
It's
It's mad.
unassailable.
It's
You
mad.
cannot
It's mad.
lose. Speaking of move cards, Miles Morales. That was your cue.
Okay,
Like
wait.
the yeah, no,
Right. That was so abrupt, but I kind of get it right now.
you
Okay, so Miles Morales and our next topic have a very similar vein in which, yes, they got buffed. This got buffed. 1/6. If you move a card is sounds good. 1/6 is great. But the problem with this card, I'm gonna start with a problem because this card doesn't revive Silky Smooth. It
yeah.
doesn't. Because fundamentally the deck, okay, fundamentally I thought about it for like 10 seconds and I realized there was no point sciencing Silky Smooth because the Ravona deck is just the mid-range deck that does it easier and better, right? And Silky Smooth, well, getting a 1/6 doesn't change the fact that it's still a bit more less potent than the Ravona shell. So I mean, a lot of people were hoping that this would revive like that Silky Smooth archetype, but I'm honestly trying to say that like, I think this one power buff to a 1/5 that was never really played doesn't change the fact that the deck is still like not gonna be that strong. But yeah, I mean, you can play a 1/6 in like I've tried thinking of playing it in like just typical mid-range shells with like Jeff Nocturne and then you play a 1/6 mouse. There's like that option. But currently, I don't think that's better than just doing like the regular Ravona Tina thing. So well, we'll see. Definitely a buff to a 1/5 card, but now it's a 1/6, and I don't think it's gonna be very meta prevalent, but definitely could see a bit more play.
My thing with Miles Morales is not that I think it'll revive Silky Smooth because for a variety of reasons, I think that's just kind of right out. What I'm
Yeah,
wondering is there like a clog deck with a Stegron Polaris Miles sub theme? That's
okay,
what
that's
I'm
so out
wondering
there.
about. Like,
So out there, man.
no, but like think about all the ways we have to manipulate the opponent's board. You have like debris mockingbird stuff that goes alongside this like cheap Miles, a Stegron that's pushing things into certain lanes. You have things like Polaris, which is like a pretty good card when you're playing like a White Widow debris deck, right? Like there's stuff there where it's like I feel like there's enough power in that I might want to investigate it. I haven't gotten around to it because that's the kind of thing you investigate when you're doing well. And today I like lost a bunch of ranks and had to play like really good decks to get them back. But it's definitely a thought that I've had where it's like, I don't know if that makes perfect sense, but there's a lot of Doc Ock decks that could probably run that. That could
Okay,
probably
wait, no,
be
you're right.
doing
It
that.
works. It works. I thought of something. Because because I kept thinking of it from the perspective of like moving my own stuff to play the mouse, but now we have, like you said, 4/7 Stagon.
Yeah.
We have 5/7 Cannonball. We have maybe 5/9 Arrow. On
Yeah.
turn 6, you can go like one cost mouse plus stuff, right? You just need to like move their thing instead of moving your own thing. Actually, that's quite interesting because the 4/7s, the 5/7s, and that arrow is like a 5/9. It's actually real stats, and you clock them, and then you have a 1/6 available on the final turn. Okay, that might be real. That
Yeah,
actually might
it
be real.
feels like something that could be real where we're like, I'm going to spend my time clogging you and then Cannonball beat you. And then my Cannonball is also coming alongside a 1/6 miles. Things like that seem okay-ish enough for me to want to try to investigate. The question then becomes like, what are we building around at the bottom end? And
Oh, that
I,
one
I
we can
don't
play
really know.
Kingpin. We can play Kingpin because 1/2, and then
I
you're
don't,
moving all your opponent's
I
stuff,
just
right?
like,
I mean, it's a
wouldn't it
1/2.
be
It's a
better if we
1/2
just like played Fina Angela though? Like,
with the Kingpin, yeah, with the
may
Kingpin because it's a 1/2, right?
maybe, I
Then you
don't
have
know.
like I don't know Polaris
I
and
just
shit,
yeah,
but
just like
like
I feel like if you're clogging them, you don't
I'm
need
gonna
the
cook it.
extra power off the Kingpin, right? Like that's sort of where my head is at. I don't
Hmm.
know. But like it's definitely
Fair,
something
fair.
where I want to be like, all right, what if I take the Thena Angela shell and craft this end game onto it and see what it ends up looking like? It's something that's
All right,
occurred
someone
to
in
me.
chat. Someone in the comments do it and let me know. I'm
Yeah.
curious now.
I've got some takes on High Evolutionary. So let's start with what happened. It went from a 4-4 to a 4-6. I don't think that's enough. And I'll tell you why. I think High Evolutionary is the single most load bearing card for players who want to get out of the worst situation in the game, which is moving from Pool 2 into Pool 3. High Evolutionary needs to be good. It just has to be. There is no other card that can do what it does for those players. I think that having a good High Evolutionary is a quality of life improvement for like 20% of the players of this game. And there is nothing that can outweigh that in terms of like potential downside. Absolutely nothing. That card needs to be actually good. I played it a little bit today. I've tried like some Pixie Mobius stuff. I don't know. It's fine. It's not that good. Like that card needed either to go to 4/7 or to buff the other cards more significantly. I don't know what it needed, but it needed more than this. Because one of the major things about High Evolutionary is so much of the playability of the card is concentrated in Cyclops and High Evolutionary Hulk, the 3 and the 6. And those are the two spots on the curve where the best cards have released in the last 5 months. Red Hulk is probably just straight up better than Evo Hulk. Nocturne, Red Guardian, probably just straight up better than Evo Cyclops, right? And since you're such a one drop heavy deck, you're taking splash damage from people running Killmonger because they are trying to beat Zoo. None of this is good for High Evo, and High Evo needs to be good. Like, it is the most important card in the game to be good. It is the sort of budget bridge deck, and it just has to be a little bit better than it is right now. I'm not happy with 4-6. I want 4/7. I want buffs to all the Evo cards. I want them to revert a bunch of nerfs to it. Like I really do think it is maybe the most important card to keep relatively competitive in the entire game due to how the economy works.
Yeah, I want to echo the sentiment, which is that I think High Evo is like the card that I've recommended the most to people to buy for 6,000 tokens when they've like just started like thinking of their first actual big purchase in Marvel Snap, in terms of tokens. Because it's like that value card. Like Thanos was that card, but then it's a bit weaker right now.
Mm-hmm.
Arishem might be that card because it's also fun. High Evo is definitely a valuable card in terms of like you just buy one card and you get access to 7 new cards, that kind of thing. So I feel like for the new player experience, it's really good. I'm gonna throw in one more thing as well. 4/7. Yep. I think makes sense. I also wanna make a change to because like the whole affliction strategy is sort of like interesting when it's a new player experience. Like they get to
Mm-hmm.
experience the affliction strategy as well. I want 5/10 a bomb. Like I think 5/10 a bomb will be fine. Like with 5/10 a bomb should okay. I don't think it makes the deck super powerful, but like that one extra point on your like boss monster for your affliction strategy in the early game, it also lets you in the early days of the pool 1, pool 2, it also lets you play like Spider Woman, right? Like makes incentivizes you playing Spider Woman, and then you get like a 5/10 or like a cheaper a bomb, and then from then you graduate onward to like, oh, I can play more like cost discounting stuff when you get more cards and stuff like that. So I feel like 510 a bomb actually makes a lot of sense, which could go a long way. Doesn't make the deck OP, but I think would improve the new player experience for sure.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I played the exact 12 Ravona list. It was my only successful deck of the day. It saved my entire stream. I had like a 66% win rate. I was plus a bunch of cubes. It's exactly as good as it was. I will say, it's when I say exactly as good as it was, that's kind of a lie. It's worse, right? Like you're a little clunkier. Your Ravona doesn't smooth your draws as much if it's not discounting Angela. Your Thenas are a lot more reliant on having the card Kitty Pryde in your hand, but the nut draws are just as good. Like your good draws are just as good as they were, and people are a little bit less teched against you right now. I made a video a few days ago that was basically like, I am literally begging everyone to play Mobius to beat this deck because it cheats energy so hard you have to do that. And now we're in a day one metagame and no one is willing to hard target that way. Everyone is playing a lot of bit more spread out tech because there's a bunch of weird stuff going around, right? You don't want to hard target a deck, which means that right now that deck is as good as it was previously, even if not in an objective sense. It's getting benefit from people who are not hard targeting it right now. I don't think I got Mobius one time, and that's bad.
Yeah, I only have like one thing to add with regard to that, because I also tested the Ravona deck, like to just because I had this feeling that it was still gonna be really good. So I tested it, but my testing was a bit different. So I tested without the Angela because I wanted to know like if the deck would still actually function. Fun fact, it functioned
What'd
perfectly
you replace
fine.
it
Like
with?
I just threw in another card that could be reduced by Ravona. I
Mm.
just threw in a morph. I just threw in a random morph.
Oh, I was
It
already
was
running it. Yeah.
yeah, it was okay, but Morph is a lot worse right now when you actually, how should I put it? There's less Hela. When there's more like just purely big stuff, Morph is better. Okay, it's not bad now, it's just like a bit worse. But like my point was that like after testing the deck for a few hours with no Angela, I realized that it's just good. Like I'm pretty sure if you have the Angela in there, it's also just gonna be just good. Like I cannot decide which is better right now. Clearly Angela was nerfed, but it's definitely gonna be fine still in the deck. And like the deck is just so powerful simply because like it gets the moment you actually have access to like Mysterio by turn 4, you just like can do everything. It's kind of crazy. Like the moment you get to play a Mysterio on curve, Mockingbird is live, Sasquatch top deck is live, like everything is live. So Mysterio stonks in the deck. I love Mysterio and I love the fact that you can play it in that deck. So like
Yeah.
one thing my stream title when I was playing this deck recently was like I am enjoying Marvel Snap right now because like it's the best deck in the game and I enjoy this best deck in the game because you get to play Mysterio. So anyway, if you guys like this deck, it's just the Ravona good cards deck. I as much as Angela got nerfed, I honestly think it's just like the same.
Yep.
Still the best deck. At least for now, it's still the best deck.
Yeah, we'll see if other things sort of arrive to beat it. There's definitely worlds where that happens. So, Fastos, is he a Pastos or are you having a Blastos?
Okay, I honestly think this card is. I know I don't know if you guys actually know what my pitch was that make this card like not so like actually not as great. Like my initial pitch was that this card is like good in other card games, but this game is only 6 turns, so like the rest of the game, aka after playing Fastos, is like 3 turns, and that's assuming you play it on turn 3, and the buffs or like cost reductions are random, so you actually cannot plan. And even if you can like high roll the Fastos on turn 3, you only got like 3 turns to draw like whatever you need, and if you don't play it on turn 3, it's just like exponentially worse. So that hasn't changed. I've played against a lot of Fastos personally. People like to try the card, and every single time like it worked. It's like they play it on turn 3. I don't even feel that like afraid because they don't guarantee any discounts or buffs. It's just like completely random, right? And I also know they only got like 3 draws for it. So long story short, I think this card is like a quite an easy pass. Having said that though, like maybe next week with Arishem, you can like, I don't know, buff your whole deck on turn 2. It's like if you draw it in your 24 card deck on turn 2,
Yeah.
sure.
Like,
But
yeah.
I do believe it's one of those cards. Like, cause my pitch with Arishem in a general scheme is just like you want to play 12 cards that you don't really care when you draw them. They're like fine. So I guess if you don't draw Fastos on turn 2 in Arishem, then you just never play it and then just play your random cards. But if you do draw it on turn 2, you just slam it. You can slam it on turn 2 because of the mana cheat from Arishem. So like, yeah, I guess maybe that's one reason you might want to get Fastos. But if it's about like card economy, I swear you just like can skip this card without worrying too much.
Yeah, I found him to be actually pretty good in Silver Surfer. Like, I can't honestly look at that and be like he's bad. But he felt like the 11th or 12th card there. He was pretty good,
Yeah.
but he didn't feel like he was like, you have to have him. He's very replaceable. You replace him with Gladiator or Shaw or whatever it is you're not running, Rogue, whatever. Play whatever, right? Like, and so he's good enough there, but not good enough probably to purchase. He's actually a card that I think is going to end up probably not being very good, to the point that I wonder if he's going to get a buff, honestly. Like,
What kind of buff? The choose one thing?
I don't
Is
know.
that too strong?
I don't think they can do that, but like maybe like I'll tell you, I know how to make him too strong. You make him a 3/5.
Three,
Boom,
three,
busted.
five.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's genius. It's amazing now.
Not wrong, not wrong. It feels less bad to be just play a
Yeah,
3/5.
like if that's a
Like
3/5,
even
he's awesome. He goes in a ton of decks. You're free rolling it because it's a 3/5, right? As
yeah.
is, I'm not very sold on him. I don't think he's a particularly good card. And while he was playable in Surfer, I don't give him like a ton of credence in that deck.
Mm-hmm.
So, Arishem is coming out and has the potential to be the most game warping card we've ever seen. If this card is good, it's going to be super oppressive, probably. If this card is bad, it's going to be really bad, probably. And I think, like, I wanted to start with Arishem talking about, like, first of all, the downside of having that many cards in your deck. Yes, that's bad. Yes, it makes you vulnerable to Darkhawk. Yes, the fact that you have so many cards in your deck means that you're very unlikely to actually reasonably Darkhawk people or to get rid of that Darkhawk no matter how much tech you put in your deck, because you're not likely to draw your tech. And so you're just going to get run over by the world's largest Darkhawk. And that's a bad situation to be in, I think, but I am still excited for the possibilities. Like, turn 2 wave asymmetrically is really insane. Like, turn 2 wave into like turn 3 6 drop. A turn 4 Lady Deathstrike is super insane. Like, there's like some really crazy stuff if you can get ahead of curve. I do think that like a card like Agent Coulson's going to be pretty valuable in there. I expect them to probably be Loki decks as well, but there's just kind of a lot going on there. And so I expect it to be like, when I think about what an Arishem deck's going to be, I think it's going to be a mixture of card generators and cards that are just like super busted if you play them early. And that's kind of what I think Arishem is about.
Yeah, actually, okay. So my initial thought about Arishem is like you mentioned earlier, 2024 card deck. It just sounds like the most wrong thing ever, right? Like in a game that's only 12 cards. But I gave it a bit of chance. I took a look at it again. I was like, okay, so there might be situations whereby the energy cheat is actually worth it. In which case, it just means that you build your deck to like you said, play cards a bit ahead of curve, right? Like we mentioned, Fastos, wave into like the early 6, that kind of thing. And of course, Quinjet. Quinjet is like, I would assume, one of the most auto include cards in that deck because it's all like discounted cards plus you get free energy. Doesn't change the fact that it's a bigger deck, but like. Yeah, bigger deck. But like I do think that there are ways to build this to make it a bit more consistent, and like I'm very excited to see what we can do with this deck. Okay, honestly, I really will just buy this card no matter how bad it ends up being. Because I feel like yeah, it's just one of those cards that even if it's like worst card ever printed, you still just buy because it's just so much value, right? Like it's like one card mini game in Marvel Snap. Like it's a walking mini game because it just like allows you to play the game on a totally different level. Like it's like if you could like I don't know if Agatha was for purchase, people would purchase it because it's just a new way of playing the game, right? That kind of thing. So I feel like Thanos was a new way of playing the game. High Evo was a new way of playing the game, and Arishem is also kind of like a new way of playing the game. So like I would just buy it. If it turns out to be horrible, I will never regret it because it's just a new way of playing the game, and I want to explore that.
Speaking of new ways of playing the game,
I
data
knew you were gonna
mines.
say that.
Yeah, I'm not unpredictable, right? Like,
Okay, let's go.
data mines have revealed that the new mechanic being teased is called Activate, and it is effectively, as far as we are aware, imagine a card has a like you press the card, sort of like Howard the Duck, and then a thing happens. And there are multiple questions that need to be answered. First of all, can you do it multiple times? Is there an energy cost associated with activates? Like, is there a card that's going to be like activate 2 and it costs 2 energy to make the activate happen? How does it impact design? What is the ordering in which you are able to activate? Does it work like current move or does it work like past move? Like, are you able to do something like, for example, one of the cards that was data mined was Symbiote Spider-Man, who is a 4/6 that merges with your other cards, with one of your other cards at a location. So are you able to do, for example, play Galactus on the Symbiote Spider-Man location, activate Symbiote Spider-Man afterwards, does that order work? I don't know. Does and so the question is like how does ordering work with this mechanic? And are there other associated costs applied to it?
Yeah, so this card, okay, so when I see the word activate, because I came from this Yu-Gi-Oh background, right? When I see the word activate, my first instinct is like I need to flip the card up or I need to click something because
Yeah.
it's like activate sounds like a manual push of a button, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's okay. I have no idea if it's correct or not, but like I'm assuming you click the card or you like have to hover or like long press the card or something like
Yeah.
that, and then you get the option to do the thing that it said it's supposed to do when it activates, right? But I guess that's probably what will happen. But like you have so many questions like the timings of the activates. Can you like literally like I think it feels a bit counterintuitive, but can you like play the card and then activate on the same turn you play the card before it flips? Like that's
That's
probably
I don't
not.
think you can. Like physically, I don't
Yeah,
think
it
there'd be
sounds
a way to do that.
counterintuitive. Yeah. It sounds weird. It sounds weird. So like maybe the card has to be on the board for a turn and then you
Yeah.
click activate, which means activate cards suck on turn 6 in theory because you can't,
Yes.
activate. So something like things like that. I wonder what you guys think though. Like this topic's not really for us to like clarify any doubt. It's actually to put more doubt in your mind so you can ask the questions that we
Yeah.
are asking as well. But it's really interesting because I think it's been like, is it the first new keyword ever in Marvel Snap?
Yes. It is.
Okay, then that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure because like the interesting thing about these cards is I don't know. I don't think you can ever make a 5 cost activate. I don't think you can do it because like
Hmm.
or like especially a 6 cost activate. But if you make a 5 cost activate, it's just like oh I didn't draw that. Like and so much of the power of it is wrapped up in the activate. And yeah, I don't know. Like the bigger an activate card gets, the more it feels like this is a mechanic that's got to be limited to like 4s and 3s and 2s and
Or
1s
lower, yes, yes.
because if you obviously can't make a 6 that's an activate. That seems
Yeah.
ridiculous, right? You can't
Yeah,
ask
because you
people
can't click it on the same
you
turn, yeah.
can't do it, right? Like unless you
Yeah,
can do
assuming
that,
that, but yeah.
like
Yeah.
there just doesn't seem like a way for that to happen. Like based on what I know about Marvel Snap, it seems like it's a little bit held together by duct tape. And the
Mm.
staging step specifically is like a very difficult thing for them to deal with. The like we just saw a bunch of crashes happen with like cards being generated while other cards were face down, right? Like I think that like that's probably an issue for them. So I'd be very surprised if they were able to get it to like play and activate. That seems like it would be a just a power creep of on reveal and B
Yep.
just really hard to code. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for making it to the end of that video. I've been KMBest. He has been Lambie Series. The next episode will be on my channel, Lambie. Take us out of here.
Thank you so much for being here with this one on my channel. Next one's gonna be on KM's channel. If you like what you just saw, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.